kind of show how to make one in an end grain or spindle orientation, similar to this one. What I would do is start with it just between centers and, round it up and put a tenon on it and put it in a chuck. I would recommend using some kind of, these are one-way tower jaws, some kind of bigger, deeper jaw, so that I've got a tenon on it that's about yay deep. You can also do it with a faceplate. In fact, that's the way we did them for years before. I mean, when I started, they didn't have chucks like this. The faceplate was really your only option. So from this point, you put it in the chuck, and then you want to make your basic form. Okay, so that's the form that I'm kind of going for. Notice that if this was on a faceplate, which is what that diagram shows, that the screws are outside of the finished form that you anticipate making. Okay, which could be an important point. The other way to do it would be to use the piece long enough so that the bottom of the vessel is going to be above the end of the screws. First time I saw John Jordan demonstrate, that's the way he was doing. When he was, I know where I saw it. I have a video cassette of him showing how to make a vessel like this. And so when he gets it all done, he's got to turn it over to do the bottom. He has enough wood left on the faceplate to make a little cone thing to fit the top of the vessel over to hold it, so he can then turn the bottom. And I'll show that later. Okay.
John, when you're using redwood burl, do you use a tenon?
Yeah.
Deep tenon, I guess.
Yeah. If it's a solid piece of wood, yeah. Hopefully I'm not destroying it. It does happen. Occasionally one will come off the lathe, won't it, Wells?
That's theoretical.
Oh, okay.
Off yesterday.
Well, when I started this one, Wells was filming it, and I hadn't expected to be turning one, and so I only had a tenon that was about half this long, and I'm going along, and Wells is standing on the other side of the blade filming, and comes off and drops on his feet.
Did you get it on film?
No.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's in the Smithsonian, but they closed it.
That's when the bleeping sounds came out.
So, in doing one in this orientation, you're going to have a high spot here at the shoulder, and then it's going to go this way and this way. And so you're going to want to cut downhill on the grain going this way and downhill going this way. If you were doing a face grain orientation, you would cut uphill here and here, like you were doing a bowl, and then similarly here as much as possible.
If you have the screws on the outside of where you're turning, wouldn't you hit the screws when you're turning? Like the first photograph where you have the screws holding it? No, the one before that.
I'll get to that point later, but you don't finish the bottom, okay, until you turn it over and you've taken the faceplate off, and then you do the last little bit.
No, the one before that where you said,
Yeah, okay.
oh, it's the same, I see, okay.
Gonna flip it.
Okay, so, and I'll talk about this later as part of the process. Leave a chunk of wood here. It's got the screws in it. Okay, get all this done, get it hollowed. Then you turn it around and put it back in this orientation to turn off the bottom. But that's when you can take off this excess wood and take off those screw holes.
Yeah, you don't want to hit through that.
But why would you do that instead of just having the screws at the bottom where you can cut the end?
It may depend on the wood that you have. It may not be long enough to do what you want that way, whatever.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I'll mention it now. Part of the process is you have to drill a depth hole down the middle to fit your cutter in as you go down, because you can't, go into the very center. Doesn't work. And you need to think about the depth of that hole versus your design. This is an example. This was supposed to come in a smooth curve all the way down to the bottom. And as I was doing, I'm going, it's going to have a really tiny bottom if I continue that curve all the way to the bottom. Okay, because the hole was a little deep, so I had to put this little OG curve in it, which I actually like. So, I meant to do that. I know somebody's going to ask, it's turning at like almost 1,000. Not something I usually worry about. Like Justin, I go by vibration most of the time. I'm trying to hit you again. Okay, so the cut I'm using there is like a wing cut, but closer to the tip, not digging the whole thing in. Okay, and that'll remove wood very quickly, so it won't give you very good surface usually. You can turn around and come. And that'll give you a lot better surface. Okay. If I was doing face grain orientation, what I could get into, I'd use a tool that's about this high. This, I believe, is maple, Wells. This is the piece that you gave me.
So John,
Yeah.
you've talked a lot about the hollowing tools that you use. You've got a bowl gouge in your hand. Do you have a favorite tool or a preferred recommended tool for shaping the outside on a face versus a?
I use this big 3/4 or 7/8. I don't know where it is.
3/4.
I think it's 3/4. Bowl gouge for a lot of stuff. It's one of my most used tools when I'm turning. Even when I was doing architectural work. Those who don't know, I did architectural work professionally for 30 some odd years. Never had a chance to turn a bowl for years. So I really like the big one. A lot of weight, dampens vibration. You can remove a lot of material pretty fast. So yeah. I also have 1/2 inch and a 3/8, which, or maybe a 1/4 inch, which I've used. I bought it way back when I first started. It's like, I use it like 3 or 4 times. Okay, the other side of this. Okay. If I was doing a face grade orientation, I would be able to come back and do like a shear cut. I'm able to adjust it to kind of get away with it going against the grain that way. I really like that cut for getting a finish or close to finished surface. And also, you know, I can watch the profile and really fine tune it and get just what I want.
Sorry to ask such a novice question, but speed, you're saying is not important because you're just going for. The way
Well, you
it's
wouldn't
set
want to
up.
do it at 10,000.
Correct,
Okay.
but like at 2,000 or 23 versus 1,000.
What I generally do is I put a piece on there and I, you know, turn the, this is the wonders of variable speed these days. You know, I turn it on at close to 0.
Yeah.
And then I go up until it starts to shake. And then I back off till it runs smoothly. And then, because I like to turn as fast as possible. Speed is your friend. Of course, Wells will say speed is your friend until it's not. Until you get that catch and it comes flying off or whatever. I try to avoid catches.
And we all.
Yes, we do. And most of the time, we're mostly successful. So what I've done here is what I show in the diagram. This is a trick from John Jordan. I know that name keeps coming up. He was my hero for a long time. That what I've done is left a base, a big base on there, which will provide stability as I begin hollowing on the inside. And then as I get hollowed down to this level here, then I can take more off and begin to finish that profile.
So that's due to just the mass of the wood,
Yeah.
it's the stability. It's
Exactly.
thin,
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing like when I demonstrated thin finials, you know, you just work on the end and get it real thin, and then you go on to the next piece and get it thin and work your way down. Same kind of thing. Okay, so. You know, part of me really wants just to waste this whole thing with shavings flying. You know, turn the speed up and just send shavings. But we won't do that. Okay, so what I did was clean the top off, and you know, depending on what you're doing for your opening, if you're just doing a round opening like this, or like this was before I carved it, you know, you can just leave it like that. If you want to do some kind of shaping, now's probably a good time to do it. And actually, usually what I do, although this isn't necessary, is I'll open up the top with the gouge. Okay, so on the inside there, I'm cutting this way into the side grain rather than trying to cut down into the end grain. So I think I got a little, I try and leave a little divot. No, it's not very good there. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now you need a depth hole to set the depth of what it's going to be. And so that as you're hollowing, you start with this straight bar, and you're going in and you're going like this. You have to be able to fit the cutter into the hole in the center and cut this way into the side grain. If you didn't have that hole in there, it just would be hell trying to get this to go in enough to then do a cut. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to demonstrate with the arm brace right now. Okay. You can buy special drill bits that have special handles on them from places like Craft Supplies or whatever. I've never gotten there to that point. If you want to drill a bigger hole, because one of the difficult parts can be, especially when you're starting, is you're hollowing and you're sticking this in, and as you get farther down, it can be hard to find a small hole with your cutter. So if you want to drill a bigger hole, it's not a bad idea. Actually, it's a good idea. If if you've got a 2-inch opening and you wanted to use a 2-inch Forstner bit with an extension and drill all the way with that, you could. I would recommend that you do it first with a 1-inch bit, so you're not trying to cut so much, especially if you're doing this orientation into end grain. It'll be a lot easier if you drill a smaller hole, and then when you come back with your bigger bit, you're removing much less wood.
Why aren't you using a chuck and a tailstock?
Why am I what?
Why are you not using a chuck and a tailstock?
You can.
Okay.
If you want to take the time to go find your chuck,
He's just
chuck,
advanced.
put it in there.
Okay, you can, yes.
I'm going to demonstrate with the arm brace right now. And what I've decided over years is that this part back here just really is not functional. That's what I'm cutting, although, it's even harder here because this lathe is so low for me. I'm not going to worry about going all the way. So then hollowing looks like. So you see when I'm doing this part of the brace really isn't doing anything. Now maybe if it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and I had his forearms, this would grip something. Or I suppose I could put it in a vise and squeeze it. But basically this part here is what you can resist the torque with that you're feeling out here. Okay, in deference to Dan, well, as I said, his comment was something like, I'd rather watch paint dry than watch somebody hollow, because you can't really see what's going on in there or anything. But so you would do that down a ways. So what I usually do is go down part way, and then I work on getting in under the shoulder and getting it to the thickness that I want, okay? Then take it down in steps, similar to the way that you do a long, thin thing, in steps like that, okay? What's my other slide?
What's the chance of getting a catch while you're on the side?
When you're starting out, pretty good. I can't think of the last time I had a catch, but I don't do a lot of olive vessels.
John, can you talk about like tool rest height and where you're cutting and like perhaps tool orientation?
Like I said, if you were paying attention, you want to be cutting right at center, okay?
Yeah.
So set your tool rest so that your cutter is right at center, okay?
You want to sort of angle down so you hit it center, or
I prefer to go straight in,
okay.
horizontal.
Is it any different when you do like that live edge with the whole one you did? Is it any different when you turn it? You have to be aware because there's holes and things?
Well, when it's spinning this fast, you don't really recognize that there are voids, you know.
And the wood stays?
So
Something like that?
theoretically, for instance, this one was a much larger diameter when I started with it. And I thought it was kind of sketchy, so I wrapped it in duct tape. And I turned it. And I didn't get it hollowed all the way, but then I took the duct tape off and I bumped it, and a big chunk of it fell off. So, if you're doing something sketchy, shrink wrap or duct tape or baling wire or something to hold it together while you're turning it and working on it, is not a bad idea. And wear your mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one you hollowed out first, where it's.
No, I turned the outside first. And it was starting to hollow it, and for some reason I took that tape off and it came apart.
It's a feature now.
Yeah,
Eventually, these voids are going to be filled with pewter. Someday it'll get finished. Okay, so then after you've got it hollowed down a way, then you want to start working under the shoulder. And so you use, the thing I like about this setup is that you can adjust the angle of the cutter to just what you're doing.
Would that make it like more aggressive or less aggressive, or?
You can do that by extending the tip more than, if you decide to make your own, like when I made, like if you make your own, what you want to do is have the cutter pretty much aligned with the straight part, and then you don't get a lot more torque on it than like if it was sticking way out here. It might seem reasonable to stick it way out here and you could get under there better, but you get a lot more torque on it, and it's harder to hold.
And why is adjusting the cutter head good? Like you're saying you can twist it.
Because as I go in here, I can adjust it so that it's fairly perpendicular to the wall, like this. Okay? And if you were working on something like this, where it's a much, shall we say, flatter angle, then it helps to have the cutter in a different position so that you can get up under there like this. Because if you're like John's tools, they come around and it's a fixed cutter, and so it's like that.
Okay.
And I would think that would be hard to get under a flat shoulder
Okay.
like that. I've often wondered how he would do that. But he didn't really do this shape. His were all, you know, very, very rounded and everything. So that's what that looks like. What I'm going to do now is take this one off and put this one on, which is basically the same thing but with the top cut off. And then if we have a camera shot down this way, then I'll show you what the cutting actually looks like inside, which you can't see with the top on. And I'll show the captured bar system, and then I'll shut up. Okay, so now we've got the captured bar sitting on here, and I'm going to do the straight part to open up the middle. And as you can see, I don't usually tighten this down with a wrench or anything because I want to be able to move this so that I can get farther out and come back. This cutter, which I borrowed from Roy, is not sharp and correct. It's doing it really well.
You can reconfigure it, Dan.
What?
You can reconfigure it with whatever you need.
We could, but it's getting late, and come here and start cutting. So as you can see, if this was solid, as it would be on my lathe, there's really nothing to control in it or dealing with, like when you're using our brace. All you're doing is basically squeezing your hand and pulling it in. Okay, so I got that down to about 5/16 wall thickness, just right at the top, which is what I wanted to demonstrate. But the way the laser comes into play is, and I use it, but I don't trust it completely. I mostly use calipers to get to check the final finish thickness, but this is really good for getting really close. Also,
Did
if
you get this?
if you look on Tchaikovsky's tool set, he makes some very fine, like U-shaped calipers and stuff. If you don't want to spend what I'm sure is a lot of money for those, you could try something like this, which Frank Sudol showed me a million years ago. It's basically an aluminum block. Somebody else designed these and was selling them at the AAW thing, and Frank bought one in his presentation. He said, "This is great. This works wonderful." Basically, it's got 2 holes in the end, okay, and it's got 1 bar in here with a stop nut on it, like that. And then you can make any shape you want to go in this other hole. And this is just coat hanger wire, and I used to use these, but I've gotten to doing bigger things and stuff. I found those other calipers work better. But yeah, you can put this inside.
The straight picture?
You can put the hook inside, you know, and on the outside you've got this, and just see how close you can get to when you put it up against the wall. Then that sets the distance, and you look down here, the distance of the nut from the aluminum block. That tells you what your wall thickness is. So you can make any kind of caliper to fit any kind of vessel that you want with something like that. Okay, so how does this work? Okay, I am not going to bore you with setting this completely, but you can see here on my hand, what you do is you get the dot, like you put a line on a white piece of card or something, and put it up against the tip, and the light shines down, and you adjust it so that the light's right where the line is, so like a 1/4 inch or 3/16 of an inch off the tip of the cutter. Okay, so as you can see right now, there's a pretty distinct, it doesn't show up very well, there's a pretty distinct red dot on there where the light is hitting it, okay? As we come to the outside into the finished thickness, can you see the laser thing? In the real world, it doesn't have all that white in the middle. But what it's doing now is it's not a distinct dot. It's getting long as it's shooting down the side of the vessel. And that's how you know you're getting very close to where you want to be. And if you keep going, you can barely fit, but eventually it'll disappear. It's stopped. So that's how the laser works. This is just an O-ring that goes over the button on the laser barrel and keeps it on. Okay, so that's how a capture bar works. That's how you hollow.
And that's how you laser.
And that's how you laser. So you work it all the way down. And depending on your situation, down here in the bottom, using a chuck, I would finish the thing all the way down to the bottom. And then turn around and put your tailstock back up. Make a cone out of wood in the chuck or whatever. If you've got, sometimes I've got little spigot jaws that are like that big around. You know, I put them up inside the opening and just expand them into the opening to hold it. Whatever, anyways, to put the top of the vessel over. And you can bring up the tailstock, turn away the base, leave a little nub, carve that away, and sand it off. Sanding, quickly. My bar for sanding, as I was discussing with somebody before we started, is I try and sand as far in as somebody can reach and feel, you know. If you've got voids and stuff in the side of your vessel and they're going to be able to see all the way in and maybe even reach in, then you might want to go all the way to the bottom.
You're saying fill your voids?
That's another alternative, yeah. An implement that helps sanding the inside is called the sanding solution. Available from a website called the Sanding Glove, because their original thing was a glove with Velcro on it, and you could stick sanding discs and stuff to it and sand away. So this is articulated, bends this way and that. For me, it'll go right in the end of my bar. So that thing helps. It comes with different sizes of discs, pads to hold them, and different consistencies. There's a real soft one, and this one is stiffer. I don't find the soft ones work really well. If you've got a difficult area to get into, sometimes a solution like this, if I got that set right, I don't. But let's see. I want to hold it up here. Okay, it's basically some foam with sandpaper there. I think these are quickly glued together, but you don't have to. Put it in here, the wood's coming around this way, it wraps it around there, and you can change grits and everything real fast because they're just forceps.
So they're definitely at least 5 steps.
Okay, so that's another kind of sanding solution. I think I'm done.
What about finishing inside? Just
You can, or you cannot, depending on your choice. You know, if it's got a lid on it, probably don't need to bother with it. I don't think I did with either of these. I know I didn't with that thing, because nobody's going to see the inside. Because you're turning thin, you know, I don't think the finish changes the evaporation rate of any moisture enough that it's going to cause problems. If you leave the walls thick, you can end up with what Dan ended up with over there. Wally, you want to tell that one up? I mean, that is one odd shaped thing, and it's got a pretty thick wall, and it really moved on him.
Good carving subject.
I am impressed with your off-center turning skill.